Well, good evening. I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute. You're watching Devil's Advocate. That's me. So later on in the show, we're going to be talking to Kenny B. Remember Kenny B from Westward? Oh, he's the great. But first, let's talk a little presidential politics with our old friend, Jay Ambrose.
Hi, John.
Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
You're still with Scripps Howard,
That's
syndicating that silly column of yours.
Right. I send my silly column out to
and they still pay
a lot
for
of
this.
newspapers, and it ends up on the internet, and millions of people potentially read
You realize
me.
you're like
it's
one
conceivable that millions of people read me.
You're like one of 3 guys in the entire country still making a living as a columnist.
Well, I
That's
would call
impressive.
it a living. You know.
Well,
they do pay me some money.
That and the lawn care service you have. Making ends meet.
That's right.
Tuesday, caucuses here. And I've always been amazed about the straw poll and the impact of that, because I know that the straw poll that was done, it was called a presidential preference poll. So before the caucus goers on Tuesday got down to business of electing who's their delegates going to be to this county assembly and the state assembly, they had a little mimeographed piece of paper and they checked off their presidential candidate, and surprise, Santorum won. First of all, do people know that this has no real weight, that the Santorum vote, that was a preference poll, so it doesn't guarantee any delegates, but still it seemed to have a massive impact on perception.
What Santorum achieved was, in winning 3 primaries in one day, is headlines, is TV time and money. We still have a whole bunch of primaries to go. We've had, what, 8 so far, of which he's won 4, and Romney's won 2. And I got my arithmetic there wrong someplace. But at any rate, I think, and Gingrich has won 1, and if that doesn't add up to 8.
That's all right.
Forget it.
You're a newspaper man. What would you know about mathematics?
It's just words with me.
Right.
I mean, this counts for something.
But it doesn't count. It doesn't count for delegates. Let's be clear about that. At least in Colorado.
Some of Minnesota's delegates are going to be there.
But Colorado's aren't. That'll be decided in April at the state convention.
All right. Missouri is strictly a beauty contest.
And so is Colorado.
But right now, Super Tuesday, we've got, what, Michigan and Arizona coming up, and Maine. Romney's expected to take Michigan because, he was, born there, and he's expected to take Maine because New England's his neck of the woods. But who knows? He was expected to take these 3, John.
And he
was expected
Colorado
to take South Carolina, John. He was expected to take, he took Florida. He was expected to win Iowa there at the very end. I mean, Gingrich was for a while before he walked off a cliff. But
hey, I think a permanent moon station is a good idea too.
I've been thinking about that. Moon rocks for everyone on Earth. But what is the money? Where do you get your revenue once the moon rocks? Everybody has a moon rock.
Well, then you start growing moon crops. The Santorum victories, do you see them turning this primary?
I don't know.
Before Tuesday, I would say, and I still believe, that this is Romney's, and he just has to finish getting up. That he's got the money, he's got the infrastructure.
The other day, I read an expression someplace that Romney turns on Republican lights like a dead battery. There's something missing there with him. People aren't getting enthusiastic about him. I happen to like an awful lot about Romney. I think he has extraordinary experience. I think he has unbelievable character. I think he's very, very bright. I'd like to see him do a little better on a lot of issues, frankly. And I'm really sorry he had a Romney care in Massachusetts, because there are a lot of things where that slows him down in a general election. But having said all of that, I think there are a lot of pluses. But for some reason, he doesn't seem authentic to people. People feel there's something that he's not quite looking at. He's not really quite been telling them where he stands. I think what it comes down to is for a Republican to be able to become a governor in a state like Massachusetts tells us he's not a hardcore Republican. When he passes basically Obamacare, but for his own state, it's hard to then take Obamacare as the big threat, which I think most Republicans believe it is. My suspicion is, and this is my speculation, he could win over hardcore conservatives like me if only he would do
what I think he should do, which is apologize. Do what an alcoholic does when they're during the 12-step program. Say, you know why I'm the right guy to stop Obamacare? Because I was stupid enough to fall for it, and here's why.
I think he should have done that earlier. I think at this point it's almost too late because he's apologized for it. I mean, because he has defended it so many times. Look, one of the things that happened this past week was that Obama managed to get into enormous trouble by taking away the religious freedom of those people who believe that you shouldn't be forced to purchase contraceptives, including morning after abortion pills, because of the government's control of health care. I mean, and it shows. But the problem now, here is an incredible opportunity, and Romney has actually been slamming it. But Romney did very much the same thing. And in his health care plan in Massachusetts, the White House has already mentioned that, Jay Carney, in a press conference, and that just, there it goes. And you know, right now, I mean, this has a lot of people in an uproar because all of a sudden it underlines what this health care bill really truly is. This is government control to the nth degree. It's telling businesses out there what they have to do. It's telling religions out there what they have to do. This is government control. This is exactly the opposite of what your institution stands for.
Let's play some of these games. Let's go down to the wire here and play some bets. I want the most conservative president that can win, particularly most fiscally conservative president that can win. I'm not a social issues conservative. So I see that we have three realistic choices, maybe, that could pull this off. One would be Newt. My sense is Newt would get slaughtered in a general election with Obama. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. I don't think he would have a prayer.
All right. I think a vote on Newt right now is a wasted vote. Santorum, I feel the same way. Now, this Santorum is a hard right Christian candidate who wears his religion on his sleeve. And he has said some very interesting things about the homosexual community. He's said some interesting things about all sorts of things that the media hasn't looked at because he hasn't been a serious candidate up to now. I think when they get a closer look, middle America, unaffiliated, particularly women, would never vote for this guy, and I don't think he can win the general. Am I wrong or am I right?
No, I think you may very well be right. Although here's what I noticed is that up until he won the Iowa, it looked like he could win the Iowa primary, he was playing the social issues card, and then all of a sudden he started talking about economic and other issues, and he did extraordinarily well on that. I remember seeing him the night of Iowa where it looked like, you know, it was a tie or he'd come in second, possibly. It wasn't clear for quite a while that he had actually won it. And I said, boy, that's a good speech because he's talking about creating jobs and he's making it, and he's talking about reducing corporate taxes, you know, which I think is absolutely crucial. And he was talking about it, and he was very convincing on it.
When I saw him speak out here in Colorado, 90% of his speech was about family.
Was it?
Was about God, and was about family values. And while that worked well for the religious group he was talking in front of, let me tell you, that's not going to pull that necessary middle third his direction.
He has another problem with conservatives also. It might be something of an advantage in the general election, and that's he's a big labor guy. He comes from Pennsylvania. He's been playing.
How do you mean a big labor guy?
He has supported unions in a lot of their legislative desires in Congress. And Ron Paul has made an issue of this a couple of times. He voted against the national right to work. Now, I don't believe in the national right to work either. I think it ought to be up to states. I don't want the federal government doing this stuff. I want states to be doing this stuff. But I think he has a problem there on the conservative side.
Here's the way I've seen the entire primary, which is you got slow and steady Romney that no real Republican gets excited about because he reminds us too much of a squishy Republican who's blue blood, George Bush. And so he's running along steady, and then everybody who comes up gets knocked down by past scandals.
Let me tell you a Romney story. He's 19 years old. He's over in France. He's a Mormon missionary. There are 2 women Mormon missionaries. 20 men on a drunk rugby French team start harassing those 2 women. Romney rushes over to take all 20 of them on. You know the old saying, one riot, one ranger.
I heard that story.
No, and the guy has character. He will stand up for what he believes in. I mean, there are extraordinary stories about him. I think what he did with the Winter Olympics, where they were $300 million in the hole, and by the time he was through, they were $100 million in the hole. And by the way, he took no salary. He got $1.4 million, and he gave that to somebody, some charity or the other. I mean, so the guy has extraordinary character.
All right, well, that's wonderful, wonderful. Let me jump back. By the way, he forced people to have a government-specified health care plan, whether they wanted it or not. He has said that the minimum wage should be tied to inflation, where I believe the minimum wage should be eliminated completely.
If you believe in jobs, yes.
Yes. So we look at this guy, and it's hard for red meat Republicans.
If we should outlaw all jobs that don't pay above a certain amount,
right,
which is exactly what the minimum wage does. There have been at least 50 studies proving this beyond any doubt.
Can we agree that at this point, as we've just laid it out, is he the only guy that has a decent shot against Obama? Or as Newt Gingrich told me the other day when I talked to him on air, he said, you know, this time in the election, Ronald Reagan was 30 points back behind Carter, and being principled works, and in the long run, it'll work. Newt
Gingrich's own worst enemy. You know, one day he's over here, the next day he's over there, the next day he's on the moon. I mean, what are you going to do with Newt Gingrich? I mean, big ideas, futurist one day, 1 week. I mean, his foremost idol. You know who he idolizes in the national politics? FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, because he was transformative, and Newt thinks he's transformative. I mean, this is. I caused you to sneeze.
Yeah, it did. The idea of FDR does that to me.
I apologize. But at any rate.
But we're agreed. The reality, I want to talk practicality here, that I believe we've got a president who is going to complete what FDR started, which is a complete federalization of every aspect of our lives.
I think what we're looking at in him, look, you know, the single most important issue we have in this country is this debt. This debt can mean Greece or worse for us. If the people who hold it should decide to raise interest rates, we're done. If we have to default or monetize, we're done. This is extraordinary stuff. It is, you know, Obama likes to talk about the $2 trillion. That's $2 trillion that barely slows down the growth. It doesn't do anything to cut it. We've had, what, we're headed for a $4 trillion deficit in 4 years. We never had a $1 trillion deficit before Obama. This is extraordinary stuff. This stimulus cost more than the war in Iraq, and it was mostly pork that did nothing. I mean, this is terrible, terrible stuff. This is dangerous. And the only way you get to it is entitlements, by the way. The only way you get to it is entitlements.
Finish this up for me then. Who, put on the crystal ball, who's going to be the Republican nominee come this fall?
I believe that Romney is the only one who could really handle it and should handle it. He probably is the only one who could win. You're probably right. I think Santorum might have something there because a couple of times he's hit me in a way I didn't think he could. And I've said, well, you know, you judge subjectively to some extent. But having said
trust me, I just don't like, I'm looking for a bald president.
But you know, the thing about Bain Capital, he was one of the most successful businessmen in America in money returned to investors that included pension funds, by the way, average blue-collar guys.
And he needs to defend it. I got to run. Thank you so, Jay Ambrose. Stay tuned for Kenny B.